can do.
But it will get like shadow banned because
almost immediately. Yeah. Almost immediately.
Very quick these days.
Yeah, well. Then come on, bienvenue. Oh my God, some illicit vaping there before our very eyes. You didn't see any of that, of course. Welcome once again to another live stream with myself, Gareth Wax of the Many Purple Hats, and of course David Chernick. And we talk about modern sales. And today David's asked a question which probably comes up a lot in his normal work. And usually it's just after he said, "Show us your pipe," which is one of his favorite things. Let's flop it out.
Yeah.
The truth of the matter is, how many leads do you really need in your pipeline, David?
So it came about, I mean, yes, it's a question that comes up a lot, but it came about actually in a conversation yesterday with somebody who was, feeling the frustration of deals taking quite a bit of time. Yeah. In his case, it was, I've been on at these people for like a month. I've tried everything. I've been emailing. We've had conversations. Nothing's going forward. I'm like, well, how many are we talking about here? 3. Okay. And so I started asking some questions about the numbers. How did you get to the 3 and stuff? But the answers coming back, and this is quite a common thing, was instead of talking about the numbers, the volume of interactions they've had with different people. Sales people and managers will tend to focus on qualitative things when I ask the quantitative questions. They'll want to talk to me about the types of the interactions that they've had, what the conversations were about, who said what to who, that kind of thing, rather than actually how many of these conversations have you had? Because I know that people talk about sales being a numbers game, and I kind of rile against that. It's not just a numbers game. Whenever I hear someone say sales is a numbers game, quite often they mean you just have to throw more shit at the wall. And it's not isn't that funny?
I think it is.
Is it?
Yes, because if you're thinking, I think if you think about sales as throwing shit at walls, then you're assuming that a vast majority of the people that you're wanting to deal with are providing you shit, and I can't accept that.
No, so there you go. So yes, it's the numbers are definitely involved, of course. But if you are struggling because the 3 that are in your pipeline aren't going to produce the stuff that you want in the timeframes that you want, then that's just a matter of of course there's some competencies involved. There'll be details with each one of those, but you really need to have some more opportunities in your pipeline. And we've talked before about the salesperson's spiral of death, which is you do loads of work to stuff load things, opportunities into your pipeline. You work on them, and if even in a good scenario you close them all, then you finish that sales cycle, and then you've got an empty pipeline. Yeah. So you have to start from scratch again, and it's like this.
Yeah, you've had that elation of having achieved it, having gotten and cleared that pipeline. Hooray! Oh shit, got to find more. And exactly that.
So it pays to know. So it pays to know what your closing ratios are. Yeah, for a number of different reasons. If you know what your own natural closing ratios are, then you can do things to improve those ratios. But also, you can use those ratios to find out how many opportunities do you need in your pipeline. Okay, so if you consider this is how you calculate it. If you consider that out of 3 people that tell you they're gonna buy your stuff at an agreed date, for an agreed amount, maybe 1 in 3 actually do that, then for every 1 sale that you need in that sales cycle, you're going to need 3 people to tell you the same thing. Yeah, I'm going to buy what it is you're selling at that date for that amount of money. Yeah,
I I can double down a bit further on this. I think you don't just need to know your sales ratios. You need to set up an expectation for how long the sales cycle should be on average. I mean, it'll vary, but if you know that typically selling your Okie Coca 2000 with an added milkshake maker takes at least 6 months to do, and you're getting pressure on you from on high for closed sales within 2 months and you're starting on, then there's a disconnect here.
Yeah.
You need
it's
to
actually that. Yeah. That's the same. It's the same formula as it happens. You're just phrasing. What you're doing there is you are talking about one of the components of that formula, which is the time frame. And a lot of people stuff things into their pipeline without a time frame. To me, it doesn't matter if there's a 1 in 3 chance of a piece of business closing, because it might not be this sales cycle. It might be next year. It might be 10 years. That's no good to you now. You need to have in your pipeline the qualified opportunities that we talked about many times.
You should already be building relationship with them. That's the point.
Yeah.
If we
don't have a time frame, then an estimated close date, then we have an empty box in our pipeline, and it's our job to go and fill it by asking the question: if you were to go ahead with this, when do you think you might want it? Yeah. So it's those sorts of questions. But if you can work backwards from your required revenue figure or sales figure to how many deals you need then to have, how many opportunities you need to have people commit to you that, yes, we're going to buy it in that time frame for this amount, and then work backwards from that, how many conversations do you need in order for a person to turn around and say, yeah, okay, I buy that for $1, and then work backwards from there as to how many people you're going to have in your universe of conversations in order to get them in there. But the bottom line, and I'll just put some figures to it to illustrate the point. If you are struggling to close even 1 of 3, then you're going to need at least a 4th. And let's assume that you're able to close 1 in 4. Then if you then figure out actually how many sales conversations do I need in order to get a qualified opportunity, and it might be 3 for each one. So 3 times 4 is 12. And then how many people needs to be in my addressable prospect base in order to get those 12? And it might be 10 to 1. So you might need to be drawing up a list of 120, prospects. Now, confronted with that kind of ratio, they're big numbers. And that's where people get this idea that it's, a numbers game. But if those are your ratios, that's what you're going to need. Yeah. And it's going to have to be constant. So every time somebody comes out of that 120, you need to be constantly refilling it. That's why marketing people say it's a continuous thing. Just keep doing it.
Right.
Carry on. I tell my clients, carry on doing your press ups. Have a healthy diet, do it every day. Okay, have the odd day off and binge, or have a day off and have a rest day, but do your daily press ups. So we're constantly having to feed that funnel. But just to, using that as an example with that 120 people, this person yesterday, as it happens, didn't have really anybody. So how do you go from 3 to 100? Well, actually for them it was 100. How do you go from 3 to 100? So we set some goals and we said, look, by the end of the week, let's just get 20 on there.
Right.
So get your 20 on there. Now, when they come back with their 20, we need to then populate that with contact data and start making some calls and try and qualify them, send them some emails, but it's kind of like in Arabic, we say shwaya, shwaya. We're taking 1 step at a time. Okay, so Get your 20. Week 2, start working on those 20, get another 20. Week 3, start working on those 40, get another 20. Constantly be working it that way. And it's a grind. And that's why people don't do it. And the same reason why people that want big muscles don't go and work out, because it hurts. But it doesn't hurt that much. I liken this sort of discomfort.
No, but it's an irritating kind of hurt, isn't it? It's where you actually have to put a bit of effort in. It won't just sprout.
No. Oh, it's raining. It can't be bothered to go. Oh, it's smelly in that gym. You know, I'm gonna have to have a shower afterwards again. The plane, I can get there. You know, so you can do things to try and make it easier for yourself. Okay, and you can also figure out ways to, I suppose, give yourself little rewards for doing it. It's the usual stuff. That kind of grinds. Some people find it less painful than others. But if you want to become successful at closing deals, then chances are you're going to have to figure out how to get comfortable with going down the gym every day or jumping into a cold swimming pool. You know, you get used to it. And I do pull out an analogy that I learned a lot from some years ago.
Oh, gosh.
So the last house we bought, our home, had quite a mature garden. And that meant sort of the prospect of quite a lot of gardening. But I was adamant I wanted to do it myself. After, you know, a couple of years of not really being able to keep on top of it at all, of course, the next thing I know, there's a gardener's turned up. Okay, fine. Okay, so I resigned myself to this, but I still wanted to play my part. And I wanted to plant some trees in a particular part of our garden, fruit trees, fruiting trees. So the ground was solid, man. I live in a clay area. It was solid. You can't really plant trees and that kind of stuff. So I started digging, and it was hard work, man. Solid clay, as if anybody's ever dug solid clay.
Oh, yeah.
I also have a compost heap. I started digging in some of the muck from that. We have stables near us as well, so I'd collected some horse manure that had been down the street. And I'm digging, and I'm digging. And it got quite meditative, you know. Yeah, it was horrible and boring and draining, but I put my headphones in, and it became a meditative thing, breaking up big chunks of earth into half chunks of earth, breaking them up into smaller pieces. And I did this whenever I could, every few days. And I carried on doing it for a couple of years.
Years. Oh, any other person would have got a digger in by this stage. But anyway, moving in.
Well, so I wanted to play my part in maintaining our garden.
Yeah.
Growing our garden alongside the gardener.
Okay.
So, I'm doing. When I say this was not every day.
He rest on his spade, looking at you with head cocked to one side.
This was only when I wouldn't do it when it was raining. I didn't do it through the winter months. This was just like over 2 summers, you could say. Digging. Now, by the end of it, wow, you should see the quality of this soil. And I planted my trees, and they are flourishing. I've got an English cherry tree, and I've got a Cox's apple tree, and they are flourishing. And it's a joy to see the results, the outcomes. And the outcomes came from the digging. And the digging was made possible by turning it into a meditative process, fighting through the pain, visualizing the outcomes. And that's how I did it. Now, there's a lot of different methods for how to grind and do the thing. But that is the differentiator, I would say. How many opportunities do you need? Calculate it from the ratios, and it's probably a lot. Okay. The example that, you know, is it's quite a typical example. About 1 in 3 people that say they're going to, you know, buy your stuff in a particular time frame for a particular amount, actually do it in that time frame for that amount. So you're going to need at least, so that's going to be a 3 to 1, certainly in business services. That's quite typical. How many people arrive at that? Yeah, I'm ready to buy at that time frame after having a sales conversation. Again, it's probably about 3 to 1. We're already up to like 10 to 1 now. You know, and how many people do I need to have in my prospect list that I can have those conversations with? That's probably about 10 to 1, right? It's about 100 in your pipeline for everyone.
I work on between 60 and 70 need to be in my prospect list.
Right. Now, but you do this bit professionally. You've got your whole setup that does it. So that's someone who's good at doing it. Most people aren't good at doing it. So that's really what you want. So the grind is to get those 100.
So the answer to your question is you probably need a lot more than you actually do. Try not to be satisfied with 10 or 15 or 20. You need a lot of them simmering, because a lot of them who say they're interested, it turns out they either haven't got the money, or it's the wrong time, or the wife says no, or whatever it's going to be. You need a lot in there so that you've got enough to beat those kind of odds. David, thank you once again for helping chaperone me and the rest of the community through this thorny subject. A lot of people in sales, I think, become a bit antipathetic, or a little bit cheesed off with the process, but maybe they can learn something from David's muck digging. Maybe if you turn it into a meditative process, whereby you're working through it, you're doing it with feeling and empathy, but you still are realizing you need to build to a large mass that's 100 odd, from which you're going to be able to get your closed leads. David, I look forward to talking to you again next week. To all the rest of you out there, try and enjoy this fantastic week. Oh, he did it. And of course, the weekend to come, and try and look after that mental health. Until next week, bye-bye now.